The third night, the blinking started again. I could see it through my eyelids, the motion sensors flashing from the corners of the bedroom. The room went cold.
For as long as I can remember, I've been collecting stories that don't fit. Ghosts, UFOs, strange creatures, glitches in reality, the unexplained and the deeply unsettling. For decades, I've sought out these stories, listened to the people who experienced them, and written them down. I'm Scott Weimer, and this is The Ghost Collector.
I was living in a small town outside of Atlanta, and I was young enough that being able to buy a house felt like some kind of miracle. It wasn't a big, fancy place, but I could call it mine. And the only reason I could afford it was because it had been sitting on the market for a while. I found out pretty quickly why. The previous owners had been an elderly couple, and both of them had died recently. I don't remember every detail, but from what I understood, one of them had gone to live in a rest home near the end while the other stayed in the house. They both passed away fairly close together. I wasn't thrilled about finding that out, obviously. Buying a house where people had recently died isn't exactly comforting, but it was a good house. The price was right. I told myself I was being practical. People live in houses, people die in houses. That doesn't mean anything. At least that's what I kept telling myself. Pretty soon after I moved in, little things started happening. At first, it was easy to dismiss. I'd hear noises from another room. A door would slam when I was nowhere near it. I'd catch little movements or shadows out of the corner of my eye. Nothing dramatic enough to make me run out of the house, but enough that I started noticing it. And enough that the house never felt completely quiet. One of the things the previous owners had left behind was an old alarm system. It wasn't monitored as far as I knew. I wasn't paying for any service, and I didn't remember anything about it from the sale. I was just so excited to get the house that I figured I'd worry about all that stuff later. There are motion detectors mounted high up in the corners of some of the rooms, those little older alarm system sensors near the ceiling. They were supposed to detect movement from in the room, and at night, the ones in my bedroom started lighting up. The first night it happened, I was already in bed. My eyes were closed, but I could tell something was flashing in the room. You know how you can see light through your eyelids? That faint red blink over and over. I opened my eyes and saw the motion sensors lighting up in the corners. At the same time, the room felt cold. Not just a little cool, it was a sudden drop in temperature, but my mind did not go straight to ghosts. I thought there had to be a practical reason. Maybe my window was cracked, maybe there was a draft, maybe the air conditioner had kicked on somehow. I lay there for a while, watching those lights blink on and off. Eventually, I fell asleep. The next night, it happened again. Same thing. I was in bed, eyes closed, and I started seeing those little flashes through my eyelids. I opened my eyes, and there they were again, blinking from the corners of the room. This time, I got up. I checked the windows. Nothing was open. I walked around the room, waving my hands through the air, trying to feel for a draft. I checked the vents. I checked the thermostat. The air wasn't on. The fan wasn't running. There was no reason for the room to feel that cold, and no reason I could find for those sensors to be lighting up. I was frustrated more than scared. I had to work the next morning, and I remember thinking about putting tape over those little lights just so I wouldn't have to see them flash anymore, but I didn't. I got back into bed, pulled the covers up, and tried to ignore it. That's when I heard the voice. It was in the room with me. A long, cracked, raspy voice.
Mary.
I froze. My first thought was that I must have left a radio on or maybe a TV, but I knew I hadn't. I hadn't been watching anything. I hadn't been listening to anything. The house was quiet. Then I tried to tell myself it was coming from outside, maybe a neighbor, maybe someone walking by. But I knew what I had heard. It was inside the room. I lay there with my eyes closed, completely still, trying to convince myself that I'd imagined it. And then it came again.
Mary.
This time it sounded closer. By then, I knew that Mary had been the name of the woman who had lived in the house before me, the elderly wife. I had learned that much early on after moving in. And the second I heard the name, everything clicked right away, the way I didn't want it to. Whatever this was, whoever this was, he wasn't just making noise. He was looking for her. He was looking for Mary. I did what I think a lot of people would do. I pulled the sheet and blankets over my head like somehow a layer of cotton was going to protect me from whatever was in that room. I stayed that way, barely breathing, and somehow eventually fell asleep. Then came the third night. Same thing. I got into bed, turned off the lights, and tried to convince myself that nothing was going to happen. But after a while, I saw that faint blinking light again through my eyelids. The motion sensors were lighting up. The temperature dropped. Then the voice came back.
Mary.
I kept my eyes shut.
Mary.
This time, the voice was not across the room. It felt close. I don't know how to explain it. I could sense something near me. Not just a sound, but a presence, a physical closeness. Like someone was standing beside the bed and leaning over me. I clenched my eyes tighter, but I could feel it there. Finally, I opened them. Hovering above my bed was the image of an old man. He was looking directly down at me. He wasn't dressed in old-fashioned clothes or anything like that. He looked like an elderly man in pajamas. The kind of night clothes an older man would wear to bed. And for 1 second, we made eye contact. His eyes went wide. That was the part I will never forget. He looked surprised. Not angry, not threatening, surprised. Like he had expected to see someone else there. Like he had expected me to be Mary. I rolled out of that bed and ran. I didn't stop to turn on the lights. I didn't try to talk to him. I didn't try to understand it. I ran straight into the living room, grabbed my keys, and left the house in the middle of the night. I drove to my parents' house and stayed there. When I told my father what had happened, he took it seriously. He was a religious man. And the next day, he brought a priest over to bless the house. I also begged a friend to stay with me the following night because there was no way I was sleeping there alone. But nothing happened. The sensors didn't flash, the room didn't go cold, the voice did not come back. And after that, it never happened again. I only lived in that house for about another year before my job transferred me out of state. But in all that time, I stayed there night after night. I never had another experience like it. I've thought about it a lot over the years. Maybe the blessing worked. Or maybe when that old man looked down and saw me staring back at him, he finally understood. Mary wasn't there anymore. And whoever he had come back looking for, she was already gone.
Some stories seem to have a person at the center of them. A voice, a figure, a presence in the room. But other stories don't have a figure at all. They're not really hauntings, at least not in the usual sense. There are moments where ordinary life seems to fold over on itself. A place repeats, an object reappears. A detail from the past suddenly drops back into the present in a way that makes you stop and ask yourself, wait, how is that possible? This next story comes from Kevin, and it begins with something as ordinary as a family road trip, a bathroom stop, and a gas card found in a parking lot. This is Kevin's story. This happened to me over the course of 2 Christmas seasons, 1 year apart. The first part took place on December 26, 2015. My family and I had driven up to Northern California to visit my wife's father for our usual after-Christmas get-together. It was something we did every year, and it was always a long drive. Long enough that we had our regular stops. Food, bathroom, gas, letting the kids stretch their legs, that kind of thing. One of our usual places to stop was Flag City. If you've ever done that drive, you probably know the kind of stop I'm talking about. Not a destination exactly, just one of those familiar travel spots where you stop for a break. You pull in, everybody knows the routine, someone needs the bathroom, someone wants food, and then you get back on the road. That night on the way home, my son said he needed to pee. So we pulled into the McDonald's there at Flag City. I parked, got out, and started walking him across the parking lot toward the restaurant. It was dark, and we were doing that tired end-of-the-trip walk where you just want to get in, use the bathroom, maybe grab something, and get back in the car. As we were crossing the parking lot, I noticed something on the ground. It was a company gas card. I picked it up and looked at it. It had a number on the back, and I figured I'd call later and report it or try to get it back to whoever it belonged to. It looked like the kind of card some employee had dropped while traveling for work, so I brought it back to the car and put it in the console. And that was it. That was the whole event. We finished the bathroom stop, got back on the road, went home. And honestly, I forgot all about it almost immediately. I never called the number. I never used the card. I never thought about it again. And as far as I know, I never saw that gas card again. Until exactly 1 year later. The next year, we made the same after-Christmas trip on the 26th. Same reason, same general route, same people, same car. We had driven up to visit my wife's father, and later that night, we were heading home. Again, it was dark, and again, we were tired. And again, somewhere around South Sacramento, my son told us he needed to pee. So I did what we usually did. I aimed for Flag City. We pulled into the same McDonald's. There was nothing strange about it at first. It was just another stop on another long drive. My wife was going to stay in the car while I took my son inside. I parked, shut the car off, and reached down for my wallet. In that car, I usually kept my wallet in a small storage cubby below the radio. So I reached into the cubby, pulled the wallet out, and as I did, I heard something fall. It dropped into my lap. At first, I didn't know what it was. The car was dark, and I just felt something land on me, like it fell from up above my head. I turned on the overhead light and looked down. It was the gas card. The same company gas card I had found in the parking lot 1 year earlier. And for a second, I just stared at it. And then I showed it to my wife. And we both had that same slow realization at the same time. This was not just some random card. This was the card. The one I had found in the exact parking lot at that exact McDonald's on the same family trip exactly 1 year earlier. And it had just fallen into my lap the moment we returned to the same place. I know how that sounds. The obvious explanation is that it had been in the car the whole time, that it had slipped into some crack or had gotten wedged somewhere and just happened to fall out. But that doesn't really work for me. For one thing, our car had been cleaned out many times over the year. Not just picked up a little, but actually cleaned. Things had been removed, sorted, vacuumed, wiped down, because we were prepping to eventually sell it. It wasn't like the car had been sitting there in plain sight. And it wasn't in my wallet. I know that because when I travel, I usually take extra things out of my wallet in case it gets stolen or lost. I don't keep unnecessary cards in there when we're on the road. On top of that, my kids have a habit of pulling things out of my wallet, and I end up having to put everything back. I would have seen it. It also wasn't in that little cubby below the radio. That was a small space, and I used it constantly. I reached in there all the time. If a company gas card had been sitting there for an entire year, I would have noticed it. But somehow, on that night, in that exact location, 1 year later, it appeared. Or reappeared. It didn't fall out at a gas station. It didn't fall out on some random errand, or while I was driving to work, or while cleaning the car, or any time during the hundreds of times I must have reached into that area during the year. It fell into my lap at Flag City, at the McDonald's, at night, at the exact same spot, maybe even in the exact same parking spot, because my son had to use the bathroom, just like the year before. My wife and I sat there for a few moments trying to understand what we were looking at, and there wasn't anything dramatic to do. No ghost appeared, no voice spoke, nothing. It was just a card, a small plastic gas card that should have been ordinary, but the timing of it was so exact and the circumstances were so specific that it has bothered me ever since, and I still don't have an explanation. Maybe it was in the car somewhere, hidden perfectly for a full year, waiting for the right bump or movement to knock it loose. Maybe. But I can't get past the place. I can't get past the date. I can't get past the fact that it showed up again at the same stop on the same trip for the same reason 1 year later. And I know this isn't the kind of story where something jumps out at you in the dark, but to me, it's almost stranger than that. Because just for a few seconds, sitting there in that parking lot with that gas card on my lap, it felt like time had folded back on itself. So once again, I tossed it in that cubby with a plan to call the number on the back, even a year late. And wouldn't you know it, that card once again has disappeared. I never saw it again after that second time. And you might be wondering if I've been back to the Flag City rest stop. And no, I haven't. My father-in-law moved away, so we no longer travel that way. But it makes me wonder, if I were to go back there today, would that same gas card reappear? Stories like Kevin's are strange because nothing really happens in the way we expect a strange story to happen. No figure appears, no voice speaks, no door slams shut. It's just a small object, an ordinary place, and a moment that lines up so perfectly that it feels like reality briefly slipped out of place. And that's one of the things I love about collecting these stories. Some are personal, some are recent, some come from friends, family, coworkers, or listeners. But others have been passed around for generations, retold so many times that they become part of the larger folklore of the unexplained. From time to time, I want to close an episode with one of those stories. Not the ones everyone has heard 1,000 times. The Winchester Mystery House, the Stanley Hotel, the Amityville Horror House, or the Queen Mary. Those are all fantastic places and stories. But I want to talk about the lesser-told legends that still have something eerie at the center of them. Tonight we're going to end with one of those. A story from Barbados, where a sealed family tomb was opened again and again. And each time the coffins inside had moved. On the island of Barbados, in the churchyard of Christ Church, Paris, there's an old family tomb cut directly into the coral rock. It is known as the Chase Vault. And for more than 200 years, people have told a strange story about what happened inside of it. The vault was built like many family crypts of the time, solid, sealed, and meant to be permanent. A heavy marble slab had closed the entrance, and once a coffin was carried inside, the doorway was cemented shut again. At first, there was nothing unusual about it. The vault held members of the Waldron and Chase families. Between 1807 and 1812, several bodies were placed inside, including Colonel Thomas Chase, whose coffin, like the others, was heavy and lead-lined. These were not flimsy wooden boxes that could be easily moved. They were massive, the kind of coffins that would take several men to lift. But according to the legend, something inside the vault refused to stay still. Each time the tomb was opened for another burial, the people outside expected to see the coffins arranged as they had been left. Instead, they found chaos. The heavy lead coffins had been shifted out of place. Some were said to be standing on end. Others had been tossed against the walls, overturned, or stacked in strange angles, as if something powerful had thrown them around in the dark. The marble door had still been sealed. The cement had not been broken. There were no signs of grave robbers, and no obvious way in. And yet the coffins had moved, and the story spread across the island. The most famous part of the legend came in 1819, when the governor of Barbados, Lord Combermere, decided to put an end to the mystery. He personally oversaw the resealing of the vault. This time, They would know if someone tampered with it. The coffins were put back into place. The marble slab was sealed again with fresh cement. Lord Combermere pressed his own signet ring into the wet seal, so any break in it would be obvious. Then, as an extra precaution, sand was sprinkled across the floor of the tomb. If anyone entered the vault, even in secret, their footprints would be left behind. The tomb was closed, and for about a year it remained that way. Then it was opened again. The seal was intact. The cement had not been disturbed. The sand on the floor was smooth and untouched. There were no footprints, but the coffins had been thrown around again. That is the image that made the story famous. A sealed tomb, undisturbed sand, and massive lead-lined coffins somehow moved in total darkness by no visible hand. To believers, it was proof that something unnatural had taken hold of the Chase vault. Some said the family was cursed. Others believed the dead inside were restless, or that some force within the tomb did not want them there. But the story always has skeptics. Modern researchers have pointed out the historical record is thinner than the legend suggests. There are no strong contemporary newspaper accounts or official reports that clearly document the events as they are usually told. Some versions of the story resemble older symbolic tales, including secret vault allegories connected to Freemasonry. There is a more ordinary possibility. Barbados is prone to flooding, and the Chase vault was cut into coral rock. So if water entered the chamber during storms or seasonal changes, the heavy coffins may not have been as immovable as they seemed. Lead-lined coffins could potentially float or shift under the right conditions, then settle at strange angles once the water drained away. That explanation takes away the ghost, but it does not completely take away the unease, because the legend remains. A sealed tomb, a governor's signet ring pressed into wet cement, and sand laid carefully across the floor. No footprints, no broken seal, and inside, the dead had moved again. By 1820, the Chase family had apparently had enough. The coffins were removed from the vault and buried separately in the churchyard. The Chase vault was left open, empty. And maybe that's the strangest ending of all. After all the stories, all the fear, all the attempts to prove or disprove what had happened, the solution was not to solve the mystery. It was simply to stop using the tomb. Today, the vault remains open and empty. No coffins, no seals, no sand. Just a dark stone chamber, and one of the most famous ghost stories ever told about the dead who would not stay where they were placed. I'll admit, stories like this hit a very specific nerve for me. I've always had a morbid curiosity about the objects and rituals we build around death. Coffins, flowers, cemeteries, mortuaries, graves, headstones. The way we try to make death feel orderly, respectful, even beautiful. And that's what makes a story like the Chase Vault so unsettling. A coffin is supposed to stay where it's placed. A tomb is supposed to remain still. The dead are supposed to be at rest. So whether you believe the story or not, the image of the coffins moving inside a sealed vault reaches into something deep and uncomfortable. If you have a story connected to a cemetery, a funeral home, a grave, a roadside memorial, an old family plot, or any strange moment around the rituals of death, I'd really like to hear it. These are the stories people carry with them. Ghosts, UFOs, glitches in reality, strange encounters, moments where the world briefly stopped making sense. You can send your stories to scott@theghostcollector.com. Thanks for listening to The Ghost Collector. I'm Scott Weimer, and if you've been carrying a story you can't explain, maybe it's time to let someone collect it.